just by a show of hands, how many of you guys, before getting the invitation for this meetup, like have heard of features? Cool. How many of those hands have actually like created a feature? One? All right.
Oh, come on, man.
Wow. Paul, you were in the
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to really use it. There's been no reason for me to.
You're missing out.
Yeah.
Okay, so so what is a feature? Does anyone want to throw out what they know about what a feature is?
An exported functionality.
Exported functionality, yeah.
Some combination.
A combination of exported stuff,
Yeah.
yeah.
Combining pieces of configuration such as node types, views, and such to create a whole end-to-end feature.
Yep. At its core, though, it is a module. Basically, what there, we'll get into this in a second, but there's the features module creates feature modules. So this is a little confusing, but there is a module that you can download from Drupal.org that will create a module for you. You don't have to go in and write a module. So this is pretty cool for all of you guys who don't know PHP or anything like that. You can write a module just by punching in stuff in a form on your Drupal site.
Since this has something to do with combinations, would you be differentiating it from distros during our discussion?
A distro as in like a installation profile or something?
Well, I don't know. We just
It's kind
have
of like
meetings.
Acquia Drupal or OpenAtrium as a distro.
You know. We just
Yeah,
had-
a distro is basically like a collection of configuration and modules and it built into a Drupal site, whereas this is just, for instance, a blog feature would just be everything associated with getting a blog on your site. Whereas a distro would be like, I've got a distribution tailored for blogging, and it would have all, it would have Drupal core in it. It would have, all the contributed modules for that. So a feature might be a subset of a distro, if that makes sense. Were you going to say something? Do you have a question back there, or were you just... So, and has any of you guys heard the term glue code? So this is kind of what you were, a couple people said, is basically just a combination of configuration. So you've got this glue code module, basically. It's just kind of tying different things together. So when some of you guys who were just new to Drupal, or even if you can remember back to when you first started learning Drupal, you had all these different moving parts, and it was like, how can I make my website and connect all these disjointed parts together to make one whole narrative, basically, on the web. And so this is one way to help you do that. So if you hear people use the term glue code, or sometimes like wrapper module or something, it's referring to that concept of just getting these views, content types, and all of that, and kind of tying them together into one package. It's also an amazing development tool. So if you're managing sites where you've got a live site, and like this gentleman in the back was saying, he's got this site online, and well, now I need to figure out how to how to update it. So this could be a great tool for that, because you can work locally on your machine, which is what we're going to be doing here, and tweak out everything how you want, and you're not even touching your live site. You're just working locally, getting things how you want it, and then you export all of that stuff into a feature module. And basically, all it is after that is copying that module over to your live site and enabling it. And then you've got your functionality there ready to go. So yeah, basically, it's it's a shortcut as well because you can already do this without features module, and a lot of people probably already are doing this. You're exporting your views. If you create a view, you can export it and just copy and paste onto your live site. So you could work locally, create a view, export it, paste it in, or you could even have a module that's doing that for you as well. But the reason this is a shortcut is because you have all these handy tools to just, if I want to make a change to an existing feature, I can quickly go in, edit that view, tell features to update that feature, and it will do the work for you of basically copying and pasting what you would normally do. It does that for you and updates all your files. And then when you launch that over to your live site, it also has lots of tools there for you to be able to look and see what the state is of your feature. Like, is it overridden currently? Are there things that are overriding my functionality that's written in the module? So a great developer's tool for, and a shortcut for a lot of the stuff you're probably already doing if you're building lots of Drupal sites. So like I said before, there's what we called a feature module, and then there's the features module. And so a little confusing at first when you're just getting into it, but like I've been describing, the features module is the actual module that you download from Drupal.org. So the features module is what actually creates a feature. So when you use the features module on your site, you'll download something that'll look like this. This is what we're going to make tonight. We're just going to make a simple blog feature. And you'll download a file that'll look like this. It'll have a .module file, .info file, and if you're familiar with writing modules, you'll see, oh, okay, I know these two files. And these files right here are the files that features creating, and it manages all the stuff that's in here. So right here, what you can see, these two files, you can actually edit these as if it was a regular module, and features will honor whatever you put in there. It won't remove that. So you could actually, and I do this a lot, I start by creating a feature, and then I just extend it by editing these two files. Just so even if if you are one of those people that's used to writing modules yourself, don't think that this tool isn't for you, because you can take this as a starting point and just start extending it. So, and here's a little snippet from what actually you would get into a particular file. It's just, you can see here, it's actually just exported a view and put it in a file for you. It creates the files for you, puts everything in there that it needs, and if you needed to make changes to it, it would update it all for you automatically. It's really, really nice. It also, like I was mentioning before, monitors the state of your features. So, and by state, I mean, when we were talking before about you working locally, for instance, on a particular feature, and then if you are uploading that to your production site, you could go to the admin build features page, and it would list all your features that are enabled and say, oh, this feature is using all the default values. This feature is overridden. And by overridden, I mean if you had a view in your feature on your website, a view of a listing of nodes, basically, and say the code in the feature has changed from what is live on your site, it would say overridden there. And so then you could just revert back, and it would revert everything back to what is in your feature.
You may get to this, and if so, don't answer me now. But does features handle versioning? Suppose you have a feature in a certain state, you deploy that to your live site, then you want to do something more to it. You want to add a few fields to your node type or whatever. Does features keep track of the versioning and allow you to incrementally upgrade a feature on the live site? So
there's a couple ways to go about this, if I'm understanding your question.
Yeah.
Features uses all, like when you download a module from Drupal.org, if you look in the .info file, you know, you've seen at the bottom how it has like the version written on there of 6.x-1.0 beta 3 or something like that. You can actually do that in your features modules as well. And you can put timestamps in there in the same way. And you know what? If any of you guys have heard of the feature server thing that DevSeed has built, you can actually have a server that works just like Drupal.org that will, when your module, if you set up a server for that, on the update status page in your Drupal site, it would actually say, oh, you've got a new version of this feature. You need to download this version because there's an update.
Do you have to write your own update code then? Or
So yeah, if you wanted to do an update code where there was actually something that features couldn't handle updating for you, then yes, you do that you'd make
.install.
the .install file. Yeah, I don't have that up anymore, but you do a hook update in function and. But back to kind of what we were talking about. This is what I was telling you about. You know, you've got your default state in overridden, so you can see this feature is saying it's overridden. And by clicking on this, you could actually revert it back to what is in the module, in the feature module. I need to stop saying module because it's going to get confusing, but in the feature. So in this is where, you know, saying about being a developer's tool for managing that dev staging production workflow, like where you've got your dev site you're working on and you want to launch things to your production website. If you are familiar with Drush at all, you've got commands with features where, oh, I made a change to my view, let me update this feature. And by running this command, it'll actually update all the files in there for you. Oh, I've got an updated feature that I need to revert on this. You know, you've got a Drush command that you can just revert. And if you're not friends with Drush yet, and you're doing lots of Drupal development, get to know Drush because it is a good friend. So here's some tips for creating features. Does anyone have any questions about all that before I dive into this next section? Does anyone who's feeling like they're kind of following along? Yeah, a few hands. That's not very reassuring. Well, hopefully this isn't too over your head. I think we can slow down if we're going too fast. So my first tip here for creating a feature is to namespace your feature. And by that I mean you need to think before you name whatever you're going to name your feature, because you're actually naming a module. And modules conflict with each other based on their names. So if we created a feature that was just called blog, there is a blog module in Drupal core. And so you couldn't have both of those enabled at the same time. And in fact, you'd probably create some problems because Drupal wouldn't know which blog module you were referring to if you have one enabled, and it might accidentally look to the Drupal core blog module when you try to enable it. So you can see here what I was saying about blog. Like actually when we create our feature tonight, we're going to get hands-on with this a little later. The machine name of it is going to be ADUG_blog. And you know, prefixing like that is a great idea. And this is true also of fields when you're creating your CCK content types and stuff. If you're creating those fields, you might want to prefix those field names as well, so it doesn't conflict with any other fields that are on the site.
Greenhorn question. Is there a reason to use underscores versus dashes in naming things?
Yes. PHP cannot. When you create a module, this becomes your hook. If you've heard that term before, where every function you have in that module is prefixed with this, and PHP doesn't like hyphens in function names. So actually, it just won't work.
Okay, so if you're working
so-
sort of more on the programming side, you
Yeah.
want to use underscores.
But features module itself won't let you put a hyphen in there anyways. It won't let you do anything that.
Oh,
So that's kind of handy. And you'll see once we get into the actual UI, it'll make this for you. You don't have to say, I want it to be called this. It'll just kind of dynamically create one for you. You can manually edit it if you want to. Like you could name the name of the feature just blog by itself. And then you want to make sure the machine name, which is what's showing here, is prefixed with something so that it doesn't conflict. The same is true even if there's not a Drupal core module or a Drupal contributed module that it conflicts with. You still usually want to make sure you're very specific about your name. For instance, if I was creating a gallery, I think I talked about this at Drupal Camp Atlanta session. If we're creating a gallery, I might name my feature album or something. But then 2 months down the road, I want to have a feature that's albums like CDs or something. And so just the point being here, just think through what you're going to name your feature before you actually name it. Next little tip here is variables. Who wants to take a stab at like what are the what is this referring to in Drupal core when I say variables? There's actually a Drupal table, a variable table. What's that?
Global variables?
It is like a Drupal global variable basically, but this isn't referring to variables in PHP where you're just naming a variable and setting it to some value. But within Drupal, if you ever go to any Drupal configuration form, when you're looking at that form and it's a checkbox or whatever, these are all Drupal variables. And actually, you can store these things into your features using the StrongArm module. So StrongArm and features work together. And so, for instance, if you're setting up a content type feature, so in this case, we're going to be creating a blog content type and a view that goes along with that. There's a lot of variables that Drupal stores that goes along with that blog content type. For instance, path auto settings, comment settings. Do we want comments on or off on this this content type? The order of the fields on the form it's also stored into a variable if you're using CCK. Lots of different things are stored in the Drupal variable table, and this is like kind of the looked over part about features is that, man, we can export everything associated with this feature into code and then bam, launch it on a live site and you've got all your functionality ready to go. It's not like, oh man, the path auto isn't right, let me go in and set that up. You can get everything ready to go.
Can I pause for a second?
Yes.
So what's the major difference between this and Drush?
Drush?
Because doesn't Drush save some of your settings and stuff like that, or not?
No, Drush you can use to actually set variables and retrieve variables. But Drush is a command line tool. It's just
I haven't messed with it yet.
Yeah, it's for when you're working command line. You can actually access your Drupal site using the command line and say, run cron on my Drupal site or clear the cache on my Drupal site, and you've got all these commands for that. So, there's lots of modules that work with Drush as well. Like the features, what I was showing before is you can actually revert and update features just using the command line. So this is what the actual features UI looks like when you start selecting variables. So you can see when we're using this as our example of the ADUG underscore blog, I've grabbed all the comment variables, so I can set up exactly how I want comments to be for this feature. and store it in code.
So does the features module allow you to specify which of the variables you want
Yep.
exported as part of the feature?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll once we start getting hands-on with it, you'll see the UI. The UI is really nice, and there's a lot of stuff going on, and it makes it pretty simple. So dependencies. Dependencies are when some of you guys, I'm sure, have downloaded a module from Drupal.org, and it says, such and such a module needs this module. Like, for instance, if you download Path Auto and you go and try and enable Path Auto, you can't actually enable it because it depends on token. So then you have to go back and you're like, well, why do I want token? But the same thing is true in features. You can set up these dependencies. And sometimes features will, most often features will grab all your dependencies. But sometimes, for instance, in this case, the features module doesn't know that we want the comment module because there's no real way for it to guess that you want comments on your feature. So you could actually select comment module as a dependency of this module. And then what that does is when you enable that feature on your production site, it will enable comment module if it's not enabled. So it's just another safeguard to make sure that everything's in place, everything that you need for that feature to work properly is in place.
You need to know the dependencies when you select the exportables. So when you're about to export the feature, you need to know, okay, if I'm exporting this thing, I have to remember that it's actually...
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are just, these three things are just things to keep in mind while you're actually creating the feature. Because the tricky thing is, if you forget that dependency, and then you go and enable your feature on your production site, then you're going to say, wait a minute, where's the commenting and all that stuff? And then you actually have to go in by hand and do it. So it's just one of those things. So in here, I can make Path Auto a dependency so that I can be sure that any blog posts that are created actually get a nice, pretty path instead of saying node 37 or whatever.
What is that strong arm? You mentioned it earlier.
StrongArm is another module that DevSeed has made that actually just allows you to put variables, like I mentioned, into code.
Okay.
So one complaint a lot of developers when they first get into Drupal is why is all the configuration living in the database? I want to be able to edit a file to edit, and you can. I mean, in settings.php, you can actually explicitly say this variable equals this, but there's no way to edit that. You'd actually have to edit the file. Whereas the nice thing about StrongArm is that you have it in code, but then you can also use Drupal's UI just the way you're used to using it and change the setting. And as soon as StrongArm knows that you've changed it, it lets go. So. I've already mentioned most of these, but these are other things that are very handy friends to have when you're working with features. So we talked about Drush. Drush is one of those things that until you're doing lots of Drupal sites, it may be just way too overkill to try and learn. And if you're not used to the command line, for sure, But if you're already a command line geek and would much rather be typing into a terminal window than pushing buttons on the screen, then yes, Drush is definitely your friend.
Well, this when you export your dependencies and all, there's not a handy-dandy interface with Drush Make or anything that'll download and install. Go download all those dependencies and enable them and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it won't make your DrushMake file for you,
Gotcha.
but DrushMake will, if you're working locally, you could, DrushMake will make a makefile for you from whatever installation you've got. So,
Right, but when you export that feature, Drush is not going to be able to read that and go, okay, well, let's go ahead and grab these 3 modules while we're at it.
No.
Okay, cool.
No. Not that I'm aware of. I could be wrong about that. Another friend is version control. How many of you guys are using version control? Good. So version control is if you're developing websites and you're not using version control, shame on you. You will thank yourself so much if you take the time to learn version control, because otherwise what you're probably doing is you have probably a folder that has, you know, my module .1-b, and every time you make a change, you're like, oh, which file was that again that I had that in and where it was working, and you know, you're doing version control yourself, and you're doing it poorly, because there's actually tools out there that do this for you and make it seamless, and you don't even realize that it's happening, what it's doing behind the scenes. So a couple different version control options out there. You've got Subversion, Git, Bazaar, and CVS, but we don't really want to talk about CVS. If anyone here has used CVS, CVS is really not your friend, because CVS is so old and it still works. It does work, and Drupal.org uses it to this day, but that's going to change soon. So Drupal.org is moving to Git. So I think probably if Subversion is the easiest and one to get a grasp on at first, and there's lots of tools out there for user interfaces for it and stuff, and there's even, if you're on Mac, there's you know, things that'll work right in Finder that'll just show you what your Subversion, the state is of different commits and stuff like that. So, but going back to what Paul was saying about, you know, does features manage your different versions of your feature? One thing that's great about having all of this stuff in code is when you're using version control, you can actually go, oh, darn it, I messed something up, and it was working yesterday, and I committed something yesterday and at the end of the day, and now it's not working. So you can go back and you can see what the difference is and what changed from the day before to, you know, the next day, and say, okay, here's where the problem is. Switch this back, and you're looking at actual code. Whereas lots of times when you're just dealing with the user interface of your website and making changes and stuff, you're like, oh my gosh, I made a change, and how do I get back to where I was before, because I just deleted a field, and I had all this stuff that I've been working on for weeks, and now, you know, what happened to it all? So, so yes, version control. Make it your friend.
You can see the differences like highlighted?
Yep.
The way you can in a blog?
I'm sorry?
The way you can in a blog or something?
In a block?
Or in a wiki?
Oh.
You know, where you can see,
Yeah.
it highlights the exact change.
Yep. Yeah, you can see, you can actually look at the, Mac OS has a good tool for it, just kind of built into their developer toolkit that will actually just show you the two files right side by side and what's changed. Yeah.
Would you consider that Mac OS is the premier development platform for Drupal?
Should we go down this path?
You know, starting from scratch, where should you start for best practices? Is all I'm looking for.
We'll be handing
there's
boxing
going to
gloves
be,
out at the
yeah.
end.
That's
You've been
a
mentioning a lot of Mac tools, you see. So
What's that?
you've been mentioning a lot of Mac tools.
Yeah, I probably should stop doing that. That's just what I know. I grew up on PC. Like my dad worked at IBM, and so I was on PC for a long time. My dad has now disowned me because I own a Mac, and he makes fun of me every time. So yeah, I mean, you're going to get. For me, yeah, I would not switch back to PC for development.
Okay.
there's a lot of great tools out there for Mac. Some people, if you're really familiar with command line and Linux, I mean, Ubuntu's a great option. But people are on PCs, like some of the great best developers in Drupal are on PC and make it work and do great, and
Just looking for the path of least resistance.
yeah.
We keep a couple of servers in different subdomains on one server. We like have Drupal.corporatename.com, and we put different versions up there to test different things that we're trying to do. And that's Linux hosting site with our own Postgres database loaded in there. So, and we come from a Windows box that's uploaded, or either go in through a session on a Linux box and do it all from there and write Rush. So.
Well, I realize that where the rubber meets the road and it actually renders, it's all
Right.
Linux, okay, but, coordinating all the tools and all the disparate things that you have to put together in order to make code.
I have no problem doing it from my Windows desktop. Yeah, I would think that you'd be no much different.
Yeah, I mean, if you're on Windows, unless you've got just a big chunk of change sitting around and want to switch to Mac, I mean, otherwise, yeah, just start talking with the other people. There's a lot of people on Windows in here, and they can point you. Just start asking, what are you using for developing? And
Okay, thank you.
I mean, you can use a USB and load Ubuntu on that. That's what we're doing here right now. Plug that in.
yeah. What's that?
SAM is a package for Mac, Linux, and Windows.
Right.
And for path of least resistance, that'll get you started in any environment.
Cool. So I guess I had another slide here. What did it say?
Yay. Hands on.
Hands on, yay! All right, let's get hands on. This is the fun part.
I like to push buttons.
What's that?
I'm a button pusher.
Yeah, let's push some buttons. So I've got two sites here where we're talking a lot about having your local site and your production site. So I've got this is my production site, and this is my dev site. So we're actually going to create some features here. Let me see what time it is. We've got about 15 minutes to do this, so we'll make it quick.
Is that Drupal 6?
This is Drupal 6. I've already created some stuff here, so that'll go make it go a little faster. Oh, I need to start with the content type though. So here I created first thing that you're doing when you start making a feature is you just set up your site how you want it. Were you gonna ask a question, or you just okay? So you just start setting things up the way you want it to work, the same way you already would. So we're going in and we're creating a content type. So we've got the name of it as blog, and the type name you can see here, like we were talking about namespacing things. We've got an ADUG_blog. And when I was mentioning variables, this is not variables. When I was mentioning variables before, saying you can actually export those variables if you're using StrongArm with your feature. These are all variables. So if you wanted, by default, blogs to be promoted to front, you would check that, and then you would make sure that you've got that variable output into your feature. And the way you start figuring out, there's a couple different ways you could do this, but if you've got Firebug enabled, one way to figure out like what actually the variable name is just to start looking at the code. This is a little tricky, but so this right here, node options. Oh, actually, that's not right. It's the wrapper on it. This is a bad example. I'm going to stop talking now. So normally you can look at the checkboxes, but this is actually an array here of checkboxes, so that doesn't work. There's one variable that kind of just wraps all of these checkboxes and has these settings. so that's not a very good example. So yeah, we've got our content type set up. We've just got a very basic blog content type with the title field named title, body field named body. And then the other part of this feature is that view that I was on before. So you guys all created views before? Most of you? Yep, so this is pretty basic. We've got our filter saying, only give me nodes of type blog and make sure they're published, or I'm an administrator and I can view unpublished content. Here's our fields. We're just pulling in the title. I forgot to show this, but I added a subtitle field onto it as well using CCK. So we're showing our title, subtitle field, the body, and then just a link to the full node. So this is just going to be a listing of nodes, like or blog posts, the way you would see on any typical blog. You know, where you've got your different blog posts. And I think, we're trimming the length of the body and just adding an ellipsis at the end of it, so that that way, if someone writes a 5-page blog post, it won't go all the way down the page. So let's go over to features. So this is the features UI. It's under site building. If you've got admin menu module enabled, it's under site building and features. And if we just click on this, what you see is where I was showing you before, that state column. And the features modules comes with a test feature in it. So we don't have any other features on this site. So when we go over here, this is where we're actually creating a feature. So machine name, can't really see that. So this is what I was talking about, machine name being blog. We don't want to do that. We could keep the name blog and just, you can edit it here, or we can just change it to ADUG blog, and you can see right there it automatically put a underscore in there for us.
Will automatically make you change it? Will it say you can't name it that?
Yeah, if I left this blog and submitted, it gave me an error because I didn't fill out one of the other fields, but it also says the module by the name blog already exists on your site. So, but it's not going to know if you choose if I choose a module name that's called content and I don't have CCK downloaded, it's not going to know that there's not a content module. So you just you need to make sure you're thinking like, or maybe even just go to Drupal.org and look to see if there's a module named what you're about to name your feature. So we'll switch it back to. All right, so here's description field. This is just what shows up underneath the feature on the UI to enable and disable features. So you can really set this to anything. And this is what I was saying before about being able to version it. And you can set a URL for your feature server right into it. We don't need to fill these out. You can leave them blank, and your feature will work fine. But this is if you want to get into more advanced, if you've got lots of different sites that are using the same features, and you want to be able to go to the site and say, oh, I haven't updated this feature on that site yet. This is a way you can kind of manage that.
Does the project page for features tell you how to create a feature server if you want to build one?
I think they have it on code.developmentseed.org
Okay.
on how to do that.
I've stumbled across it a few times, so it's definitely linked to from different places, because I've stumbled
It's-
on
yeah.
how to build a feature server.
It's really
numerous
simple.
times.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
The module that turns your site into a feature server is actually a feature itself. Kind of funny.
So it's basically a Drupal site that has this feature server.
Yep.
Is the naming of versions like 6.x, does that refer to Drupal 6 or is that?
Yes.
And then,
Good.
then the 1.0, is that anything particular or is that where you start?
That's where
Say
you put it
that's
whatever
your
you
first
want.
one.
Yeah. You know, my first version is 1.0. You know, and next time I make it, I may put it 1.1 or So, yeah.
And like we were saying, I mean, like the question come up, if there is incremental changes in your feature where you just add one field or you just change tweak something, it's not going to blast anything you got out there from before when you go apply this upgraded feature.
No, it'll ask you before. It's not going to do anything unless you tell it
Right.
to. Yep. Some of the stuff it actually will dynamically do, though, now that I think about it. When the cache clears next time on the site, for instance, if you have a CCK field that the label on that field is, in this case we have it subtitled with a capital S. If I change that to a lowercase s, the next time the cache cleared on your Drupal site, it would be a lowercase s on there. So unless you went in and actually edited it from where it was before. So if you went in using the CCK form and changed it.
And recreate the feature, you're good to go.
I'm sorry?
And then recreate the feature, you're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
No special considerations when you apply that to the production side again.
No,
Cool.
if I'm understanding you correctly.
I think
I
you're
hope, I hope I am.
Yeah, I create a
I don't
content
wanna-
type. I've got 4 fields in it. I deploy it to my production side. A day later, I make a change. I recreate the feature, redeploy it. I don't have to worry about it crashing anything that I had previously put out there. It's going to do a good job of managing that update and not breaking anything I put out there yesterday.
Okay, in certain circumstances, yes, that is true. If you're talking about a view, anything that is just completely living in code,
Right.
that when the cache clears,
You're good to go.
it'll change. It'll actually change it to the latest version.
Start getting in a database side of stuff, of content types and all. You may have
Content
some
types,
considerations.
it'll honor what's in the database for the most part. So
We don't have to spend
it's-
more time on that.
yeah, it's
Imperfect.
There's no magic bullet.
yeah, exactly. Slippery slope there. But yeah, I mean, you do want to make sure before you put your feature on your production site that you actually, this does work. And I've tested it. I've downloaded my production database, enabled it. Everything looks good. Yeah. But backup is always a good.
Absolutely.
Backing up before you do stuff like this on a production site.
Like a copy of it tested.
What's that?
Like a copy of the production site
Yep.
tested on the copy.
Exactly. All right, so this is where the magic happens down here, this add components. We were talking about features being a collection or a combination of configuration, so that it's really a collection of components. And when I look at this, you can see you've got some of the things we've already kind of been talking about. Content types, views we've talked about, dependencies we've talked about. Strong arm is where those variables are going to be. So I'm just going to start where I started when I built my feature. I'm going to start with the content type. And you'll see it lists the content types that we have on the site. And what I want to create into a feature is the blog. So it does some pretty cool stuff here already for you, as you can see. This is what I selected was ADUG_blog, the node type. But it grabbed all this other stuff automatically for me. It saw that I had a subtitle field on there, so it grabbed that, and it also grabbed a variable for me too automatically because it saw that I had CCK on there, And this is that CCK field that just says what order the fields are on this node type form. And dependencies down here, it already grabbed some dependencies for me. That subtitle field is using a text module within CCK, so it already set that as a dependency. Strong arm module, it grabbed a variable and saw strong arm was there, so it's already just going to turn that stuff on for me. So now I've got a feature, so I could just download this right now, and if I went and enabled this on another site, it would automatically create this blog content type, and with this field and this variable set. But we're going to add more to it, and so we can just kind of keep adding to this using this same UI.
Now, all the things that it automatically detected, if you don't want one of those items to be in the feature, how do you remove it?
You can't really, because you would have to remove whatever component requires this. Like for instance, if I don't want text, I don't want it to turn on the text module, then I need to remove this field, because otherwise this field is a part of the feature and it's dependent on text.
Well, I could think of a situation where, for instance, you might have certain settings set in strong arm, but you might not want to turn on all the strong
So
arm
in that case,
areas.
you actually could, if you, when we download the feature, I'll show you, hopefully we'll have time, we've got like 3 minutes. So I'll do this real quick and we can actually look at the .info file, but or we can look at it afterwards. But you could you can look in the .info file and see what it's got in there, and you can delete this out, delete the strong arm out, and it should forget that it's there. And next time you updated that feature, it would remove all of the code that was associated with that. So we're going to select this view. So now you can see it grabbed the views module. Over here it's got the ADUG_blog is the name of our view. I'm going to do a little bit of what we were talking about before about grabbing some other variables. Like we could grab all of these comment variables. Anything that has ADUG_blog on the end, these will be all the comment settings for it. And you can actually just kind of scroll through here and see all the different variables. This is that variable that I was trying to find the name of for you guys before earlier. That's just one variable that holds an array of settings. So we'll check that, and that'll make sure that the promoted, because by default when you create a new content type in Drupal, it's promoted to front, and we don't want it to be promoted to front by default.
A little higher.
Sorry?
I think you missed one up a little higher.
I did?
The form one.
Yep.
I think that one was already in there, wasn't it?
You just pass it.
I used past it form ID.
Oh, we don't actually want to grab that. That's something that Drupal uses internally, just to manage the hashes on the forms for verifying it. So yeah, if you see those form build ID variables, we don't want to actually grab that.
How do you know that? Experience.
He just does.
Yeah.
Having done
It doesn't. I've actually done that before and exported it, and it hasn't hurt anything. But there's no reason to grab it. Let's see what else. If we had saved the path auto setting for it, we could grab the path auto setting right here. It would say path auto _node _ADUG _blog _pattern. And we could grab that, and we could set path auto as a dependency down here. And when we enabled this feature, it would be good to go.
So how does the features module know what components are available? Is there an API that module can say I'm featureable, or is it?
Yeah, most of this stuff has been written into the features module, but if anything uses CTools export API, then it'll automatically get those things, which is nice. So like panels, if you install panels and use panels, you can export panels into your features. So let's just go ahead and download this bad boy and look at it real quick before we run out of time. Oh, it looks like we already did run out of time. All right, I'm just going to download it real quick, and then we'll switch over to the production site, enable it, and see that everything, all the magic happened. So I'm going to move this over into my Sites All Modules directory. And I've created in the Sites All Modules directory, you can create as many subdirectories as you want, and it will still find the modules in there. So I've got a custom, normally when I'm building a site, I'll make a custom directory, and all of these actually would be in a contrib directory or something. And then inside of there, I have a features directory where I hold all my features. All right, so let's switch over to our production site. And so far, I've got nothing going on here. Just a blank Drupal site. If I go to site building features, and now you see this is what we set up already. ADUG blog, and that was what our description was. So if I just check this box and hit save, and now we can see over here, once it refreshed, it says state default. And you can see already up there the view is working because I've got this this primary link for the blog. And if I go to create content, I've got a blog entry now, title field, subtitle, and if I create a post, I don't have an internet connection, so it won't actually fetch some more and get some for me. So we'll stop that and just say, oh, I can't stop it.
Set up the internet.
Oh, that's great.
It's a fetching feature.
That sounds Chinese. Fetching.
It's backspace, drop the
So one thing you'll notice, I created a blog post and it didn't promote it to front because we exported that variable. Normally, if you just had a content type and you created it, it would, by default, because Drupal thinks that's a good idea, promote it to front. So here's our view kind of working. Looks like I missed the fact that this should actually be a link to the full node. But other than that, there's, yeah.
Does this also set up user permissions?
I'm sorry?
Does it set up user permissions as well?
Yes, we could, and we didn't have time to grab those, but anytime you create a node type, there's user permissions associated with that. And so, yeah, you would want to export that alongside. One thing to keep note of when you are exporting permissions is currently the features module will create, if you have on your dev site, say you had 5 different roles, like admin, publisher, editor, blogger, registered user or something like that. And then on your production site you only had 1 role, which was just admin or something. If you export permissions currently into your feature and then enable that feature on your production site, it will add all those roles, which is some people think is cool. I think it's not cool because I may not want those roles on there. So we're gonna just open it up for questions now. Yeah.
Sorry, your permissions comment. Does that mean it'll create those roles even if like the permission's not checked for any of that role? Just if your roles are different on the development and production, it will create those roles?
I believe so, yes. I haven't actually tested that because normally I'm not exporting a permission that doesn't have a role checked for it, But I would guess that yes, it would. If you exported a permission, that it would grab all the roles and then end up enabling them. But I haven't actually tested that, so it's kind of a guess.
One of the things I've always wanted to do with features is make a WYSIWYG feature.
Uh-huh.
Just because WYSIWYGs are such a pain to set up every single time. If you are using, let's say, a WYSIWYG module and you downloaded the custom WYSIWYG code and embedded it in the module and all that, then you go in to set all the settings for that WYSIWYG. Can you take, can you take those settings that you set in the WYSIWYG and put those into a feature?
It really depends on, if you're using WYSIWYG API, no.
Yeah.
But there may be some other modules that store all of the settings in the variables table, and in that instance, yes, theoretically you could find out every variable that it uses and export that.
As a feature, okay.
Yeah, WYSIWYG API creates its own table and stores all the settings in there for that. So you'd actually have to do some kind of manual exporting of that, and then write some SQL that would insert that when you enabled the module or something. But it's doable. It just would take a little extra work. So.
What's going to happen if you hit disable?
Let's try it. I don't know why my local list is running slow. Should have rebooted before. Maybe that would have helped.
Those Macs.
I know. You got to reboot them every 5 minutes.
My Windows WAMP does this all the time too.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
While we're waiting on that to
Yeah.
come back up, I mean, not that you would ever make changes on a production site like this, but let's say that this feature becomes heavily overridden on my production site, and I decide, well, this is going to be the new paradigm. I could recreate it off that production site, just like I did from the beginning. I'll take all the overridden settings and make me a new feature.
Yep.
10.4.
Cool.
So this is another thing that features will do if you've got dependencies of a feature, and it'll let you know that, oh, there's no features that need these dependencies anymore. Do you want to disable? Not sure if I like that yet or not, because sometimes it'll have something in there that if you actually did uncheck it, it would break something. So we'll just have to enable it and see. You can see already though that the view is gone. Blog content type is gone. And then the question remains, well, what happened to my content? And you can see here it's kind of orphaned because there is no content type anymore.
And then, yeah, you had that. So your subtitle is going to be completely gone, right? What was it? Your CCK field?
Title of your body.
So
Yeah,
basically,
I
your
think
whole
it would-
website is in features.
So that's some tricky business right there, because if somebody comes along, oh, we don't need this anymore. Click and click.
Yeah.
So your whole site is basically within features.
Not really. I mean, it does look like the subtitle field is still here.
Okay, so it is
deleted it. Just
Now the question would be if we cleared the cache, if that would still stay in there.
Yeah, then how long if I go through a series of 20 features and then disable them all later because I didn't like none of it, I wouldn't want to be left with a bunch of junk out there in my content table.
Right.
Well, certainly
It does seem to keep that stuff in there. So.
interesting.
Now, when you went to the content page and you click edit, now that it's orphaned, what happens? Because it did have the edit button or link.
Oh, yeah.
Under operations?
That's what happens. But there's a
Owned by features.
Those ones that you've associated with it, yeah, I guess.
So real quick, what I'm going to do, I'm going to re-enable this feature. I'm going to show you some of the.
Yeah, why don't you have to install it in order to give you the database entries?
Because it does show up on the module screen as well. Enabling and disabling this feature works the same if you're on the module screen or you're on the feature screen, right? Because this shows up on the module. So
yes, it
either
does.
way, either place
Yes,
works
it's the same exactly. It is a module.
I wonder if you could uninstall on the module screen and get rid of those CCK.
No,
fields.
it doesn't. There's not an uninstall.
Okay.
I thought that if you cleared the cache, it went away, but either way, let's do something real quick. I'm going to enable. we're gonna fix that problem on our production site where this should actually be a link, and then I'm gonna show you how the update stuff works. Let's see if I can do this real quick. I'll need to clear cache.
You're making me like Rush already.
Yeah.
That alone is worth it.
So let's we're going to edit the view and grab this node title field, and we want to link this field to the node, to its node. Sorry if I'm moving real fast, but we don't have much time, so we need to be out of here by 8:30, I think. So now I've saved this. If I go to the manage page now, it's going to show overridden because I've saved the view. And so it's not using the view in code anymore. It's now using the view in the database through the views UI. So now, if I switch back over here, if I type in Drush features update ADUG _blog. So it's going to ask me, hey, there's already a module here. Are you sure you want to do this? Because it's going to overwrite your module. And we say, yes, I want you to do that. So now, back on our dev site, we don't currently have this feature enabled. Oh, we do have it enabled. But it does say overridden, as you see now. I think I must have enabled it last night when I was messing around with this. If I click on this, it's going to tell me, hey, your view is overridden. And right now, if I look at the blog, well, we don't have anything posted there. So currently, if I go to the blog, it's still not a link. If I go here, click on the overridden state, check this checkbox, and hit revert. I wonder why my blog menu item went away. Whoops. This might have just failed. No, it worked. I don't know. I don't know why there's not a menu item up there though. Maybe I don't have primary links turned on or something on the site. So, but there you can see just by reverting that feature, we got the view fixed. So that's kind of like shows you, and we could have done that on command line too. Like I could have gone into.
I have a question about that scenario that we just encountered. You've got a working website, you've got the menu up there in the front. It doesn't matter which feature it is, but does Drupal have anything, a mechanism, a set of features, or anything else where we have a snapshot of our current system? You make some modifications, and we can revert back to 2 minutes ago, to where you actually had blog up there and all the things. Are there techniques, modules, or something else that we can do to say, here's a snapshot of our current site, to revert back, without having to do a database backup?
Yeah, there's a couple different ways. There's a backup and migrate module, which you can use to quickly just get a database dump and save it either to the files directory, or you can actually download it.
So for like this situation here, you know you're going to be making changes to the production environment. What would be a proposed course of action, short of doing the database backup? Would you actually do a migrate every time you're making a change, and then do a restore, or?
It depends on. It really depends on you know, the scale of the project. If you're working on a very high-profile website, then yeah, I mean, you would want to be working locally probably on a thing, and then on the site, you know, have a copy that you're working locally with, and then, you know, stage your change basically, and then do it on your production site. But if you were actually working on a live production site that way, then that was a very high-profile site. Then yeah, you would probably want to make a backup before you made any configuration change.
How would you choose to recover from this particular problem? Right
Where
now,
I just
say
reverted to view.
Your blog tab disappeared.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
would you choose to recover from this?
you wouldn't be able to. So if you were working on a, here it wouldn't have mattered because we went back to our dev site and did a features revert. But if we were on the live site and we're about to revert feature, you would definitely want to think twice before you click that button.